I just lost it. I just shot my wife. I won't be in tomorrow. I will be in custody. I'm so sorry. Cops say when they arrived on scene, the judge slurred words, smelled of alcohol, and blurted out, "Oh man, I can't believe I did this." That distinguished-looking gentleman with the silver hair is a judge, and he's about to face a judge after being charged with murdering his wife.
Did you intend to shoot your wife?
The judge pointed his finger at her in a manner mimicking a firearm. Prosecutors say the judge's wife dared him, "Why don't you point a real gun at me?" Cops say Judge Ferguson did just that and retrieved his pistol from his ankle holster, shooting his wife in the chest. Attorneys for Judge Ferguson defended their client.
This was an unintentional, accidental shooting and not a crime.
Salutations, Serene Eminence here. It's a pleasure to proceed with the concluding installment of the Courthouse Homicides series, involving a compilation of cases for which judges or the immediate family members of judges were executed. The preceding episode of the Judgeship executions sector was centered upon the Sherry slaying, wherein the Mafia and the Mayor conspired to execute Circuit Court Judge Vincent Sherry and his wife, Councilwoman Margaret Sherry. And in totality, the Courthouse Homicide series has covered approximately 7 cases that sorrowfully incurred a total of 15 fatalities, leaving 3 judges, 1 councilwoman, 1 attorney, 2 bailiffs, 1 sheriff's deputy, 1 ICE agent, 1 court stenographer, and 5 defendants deceased. In a most poetically apropos fashion, the sparkling wine that shall accompany today's judgeship executions is that of a poema cava, brut rosado. Prioritizing tradition, Poema is curated with 100% Trepa, an indigenous red grape exclusive to the birthplace of Cava, which is the culturally rich region of Catalonia, Spain. It is simplistically structured and elegantly aromatic, characterized by pleasing opening notes of rose petals, succulent centermost notes of strawberry, and rapturous undertones of raspberry. The initial sector of this Judgeship executions installment shall cover a trilogy of cases for which judges unjustly executed their very own spouses. Amidst Part 1, we shall be covering 2 spousal execution cases where judges played their part in the fatal shooting of their wives. Amidst Part 2, we shall be covering 1 additional spousal execution case where a judge stabbed his wife to death, accompanied by a supplementary double familial homicide case. Prior to officially moving forth with official case coverage, we shall be discussing pathways to judgeship in relation to the 2 pertinent judges on trial, that of Superior Court Judge Jeffrey Malcolm Ferguson and Appellate Court Judge Jacques Delisle. But first and foremost, let's earnestly reflect on a most suitable quote from James Comey's A Higher Loyalty. We are experiencing a dangerous time in our country, with a political environment where basic facts are disputed, fundamental truth is questioned, lying is normalized, and unethical behavior is ignored, excused, or rewarded. Respective to pathways to judgeship, the court usually has 3 main legally trained court officials: the judge, the prosecutor, and the defense attorney. A judge is a person who presides over court proceedings, either alone or as a part of a panel of judges. The presiding judge ensures that all court proceedings are lawful and orderly. The powers of a judge are checked by higher courts such as appeals courts and Supreme Courts.
I was principally motivated by a desire to serve my country. That's something that's been important to my family and important to me. But I really didn't know the half of it until I got here. What I quickly discovered is that this job is extremely humbling. And this experience is unlike anything, I don't even begin to know how to describe it to people. When you're sitting in judgment of a person at a criminal sentencing, when a person's liberty is literally in your hands.
Every single day we have cases that determine what people's lives will be like. Sometimes they're personal, sometimes they're broader in the community.
Being a judge is not easy. I think if you talk to any of us can come up with examples of the difficulties, the hard decisions, the things you take home and worry about. But we're doing something that is of value to society, and that is a rare privilege.
In speaking more specifically about judgeship appointments, the powers, functions, method of appointment, discipline, and training of judges vary widely across different jurisdictions. There are both volunteer and professional judges. A volunteer judge, such as an English magistrate, is not required to have legal training and is unpaid, whereas a professional judge is required to be legally educated. This generally requires a degree of Juris Doctor. Furthermore, significant professional experience is often required. For example, in the U.S., judges are often appointed subsequent to garnering substantial experience as an attorney. Judges are often appointed by the head of state. In some U.S. jurisdictions, however, judges are elected in a political election.
Most presidents nominate individuals who broadly share their ideological view. So a president with a liberal ideology will tend to appoint liberals to the court. Of course, a justice's leanings are not always so predictable. For example, when President Eisenhower, a Republican, nominated Earl Warren for Chief Justice, Eisenhower expected him to make conservative decisions. Instead, Warren's judgments have gone down as some of the most liberal in the court's history. Eisenhower later remarked on that appointment as the biggest damn fool mistake he ever made. Many other factors come up for consideration as well, including experience, personal loyalties, ethnicity, and gender. The candidates are then thoroughly vetted, down to their tax records and payments to domestic help. The nominee is interviewed about their law record, if applicable, and where they stand on key issues to discern how they might vote. And especially in more recent history, the committee tries to unearth any dark secrets or past indiscretions. They solemnly swear to administer justice without respect to persons, and do equal right to the poor and the rich, and faithfully and impartially discharge and perform all the duties incumbent. One of their roles is to protect the fundamental rights of all Americans, even as different parties take power. With the tremendous impact of this responsibility, it's no wonder that a U.S. Supreme Court justice is expected to be, in the words of Irving R. Kaufman, a paragon of virtue, an intellectual titan, and an administrative wizard. Of course, not every member of the court turns out to be an exemplar of justice. Each leaves behind a legacy of decisions and opinions to be debated and dissected by the ultimate judges, time and history.
In addition to getting appointed as a new judge, sitting judges can be upwardly mobile in their careers by getting appointed to a higher court with broader jurisdiction. For example, a high court judge can be appointed to an appeals court or higher. Respective to judgeship typology, state judges are typically appointed by the governor or elected by the public. They deal with issues at the state level, such as state laws in accordance with the state constitution, in addition to presiding over criminal, probate, contracts, personal injury, and other types of cases. Officially known as superior court judges, trial judges, or circuit court judges, these judges are often divided into departments such as family court, traffic court, immigration court, juvenile court, or probate court. Now let's contextualize our first judge, Superior Court Judge Jeffrey Malcolm Ferguson.
Judge Ferguson was a phenomenal person. We're all in shock about this.
Shock and disappointment at the North Justice Center in Fullerton, the courthouse where murder suspect Jeff Ferguson is a judge. But a judge now on the other side of the law, now accused of murdering his wife. Attorney Lloyd Freeberg says he's known Ferguson for close to 50 years.
He was a loving person. He wanted to help people in his role as a judge, and he did that for an awful lot of people. And frankly, this is pretty devastating news.
Supporters of Ferguson say they just can't make sense of this news.
There's got to be more to this story, because this is a man who's dedicated his entire life to, the law.
Judge Ferguson, 72 years of age at the time of the incident in question, earned his bachelor's degree in biological sciences and social ecology from UC Irvine in 1973. Nearly a decade later, in 1982, he earned his Juris Doctor from Western State University College of Law. The judge began his legal career in 1983 as an Orange County Deputy District Attorney. He was promoted to Senior Deputy District Attorney and posted to the Major Narcotics Enforcement Team 10 years later. Akin to the judge, I secured my Bachelor's of Arts degree from the University of California, Irvine as well, except my focus was psychology and social behavior, wherein I proceeded to move onward and upward, attaining my Master's of Science degree in the field of forensic psychology, and centered my dissertation upon understanding the correlation betwixt violent victimization and dispositional optimism. Whilst working on my Bachelor's of Arts degree in psychology and social behavior, I evaluated the relationship betwixt perceptions of the criminal justice system and subsequent rates of recidivism. And as it relates to practical experience, I've worked in accordance with the legal system, operating as an investigator, a social worker, as well as a serial killer profiling analyst. As such, I have garnered extensive educational and vocational experience from both the perspective of the perpetrator as well as the vantage of the victims. Amidst my stint at the Public Defender's Office, I extended my efforts and my expertise towards the case of murderous ex-Marine serial killer Andrew Urdiales, of whom was convicted of slaughtering several women.
Urdiales confessed in excruciating detail about killing 3 women in Illinois, 5 more in Southern California, including Robin Brandley, his first victim. A total stranger he stabbed 41 times in a parking lot at Saddleback College when he was in the Marines.
I think I stabbed her once in the stomach, feeling out a scream.
To find out that it was completely random, that's really hard to understand.
And then Urdiales told Detective Booth about one more who got away.
Due to signed legislation that abolished the death penalty in Illinois, Urdiales' death sentence was commuted to life in prison, yet prosecutors in Orange County, California, sought to extradite Urdiales to be tried in California for the murders of 5 women in the 1980s, whilst he was stationed at Marine Corps Base Camp Pendleton. He was ultimately convicted on all counts and was officially sentenced to death. However, he died by suicide. At your leisure, feel free to view my Vocational Volatility True Crime Commencement introductory video to gain deeper insight into my vocational experience, educational endeavors, and solidified mission. And ultimately, I vehemently desire to make an impact on upholding decency interpersonally and exacting justice within working systems at all costs. Feel free to subscribe to both of my Vocational Volatility platforms via both Instagram and YouTube so that you may gain exclusive access to merchandise as well as discount codes. Now, I will be providing video teasers betwixt full-length uploads of episodes, so you may tune in and reference the shorts via YouTube or the reels via Instagram. Now let's reconvene with the judge in question. Prior to his judgeship, Ferguson received multitudinous accolades commiserate with his efforts, including Prosecutor of the Year 4 times, Outstanding Contribution to Narcotics Law Enforcement, Excellence in Narcotics Law Enforcement, and a considerable collection of additional commendations. In deepening our insights and the trajectory of the judge, Mr. Ferguson was formally elected on June the 3rd, 2014 for the 35th seat, and his term as Orange County Superior Court Judge commenced in January of 2015. His current term was set to end on January the 4th, 2027. However, on August 11th, 2023, Ferguson was officially charged with the murder of his wife, thus prematurely concluding his term. As iterated via a campaign statement endorsed by an OC sheriff, Ferguson said, "Our safe streets have been my top priority as a prosecutor and shall remain my top priority as a judge." As iterated via a campaign statement endorsed by the California Reserve Peace Officers Association, Ferguson said, "I have had the privilege to work with so many dedicated men and women in law enforcement whose passion and dedication to public safety inspired my own commitment to our communities. Getting the endorsement of the street cops is priceless." Judge Ferguson's prioritization of protection was most certainly confined to his prosecutorial stint. His unequivocally unfounded promises surely were not upheld during his judgeship, and most certainly did not extend unto his marital domain. Viewpoints are indeed vital, for they shape the sacred structure of our very existence. Yet and still, one's authenticated identity is not revealed via our viewpoints, nor our words, yet unequivocally through our proven actions. Now let's unveil the vile specificities of these unequivocally unjust interpersonal infractions.
That is a judge on his way to court today, not to oversee a case, but to be arraigned. He's accused of murdering his wife. Prosecutors say he texted his clerk and bailiff that he wouldn't be into work that day, saying, quote, he just shot his wife.
On August the 3rd, 2023, Judge Jeffrey Ferguson, wife Cheryl Ferguson, and Philip Ferguson were enjoying a family dinner in the Anaheim Hills area. The judge was indulging in one too many drinks, and amidst his excessive endeavoring, an alcohol-fueled argument arose betwixt he and his wife, wherein it was stated that the judge made a disturbingly disrespectful hand gesture towards his wife, mimicking that of pointing a gun in her direction. In response, Cheryl exclaimed, "Why don't you point a real gun at me?" This spectacle of a scene ultimately served to foreshadow the sickeningly shocking slaying to come. Eminence insights. It is highly inadvisable to entertain nor antagonize a threat of any magnitude, even if gestured in a comical manner. The truth of its manifest essence exists, or at the very least, desires to exist in some sector of our shared time-space reality. Indulging the ego of an intoxicated, insolent man is quite literally a recipe for disaster. For engaging with such ignorance bespeaks a dance with destruction. In terms of safety, we must not allow the treacherous tactics of the opposition to shatter our spiritual composure. For once we play into their unbecoming behavior, we become little more than a pawn amid their unspoken game. Now, in proceeding forward, Upon arriving to their $1.4 million residence, that of the 8500 block of East Canyon Vista Drive, situated in Anaheim Hills, California, Judge Ferguson proceeded to transform his wretched gesture into a disheartening reality, wherein it was reported that around 8 p.m., the judge retrieved a pistol from his ankle holster and shot his wife center mass. It was stated by neighbors that Ferguson may have also threatened to kill his very own son. As recounted, a resounding, blood-curdling echo traversed through the typically tranquil hills, exclaiming, "Don't shoot me." Luckily, the judge's terror did not overcome his son, as he proceeded in confessing to the killing via text to his court clerk and bailiff, stating, "I just lost it. I just shot my wife. I won't be in tomorrow. I will be in custody. I'm so sorry." His son then proceeded to call 911.
72-year-old Jeffrey Ferguson was charged today with felony murder in the death of his wife, 65-year-old Cheryl Ferguson.
To avoid any potential conflicts of interest, Orange County prosecutors will try Ferguson, but an LA County judge will preside over the trial.
Because Judge Ferguson spent more than 30 years first prosecuting and then hearing cases in Orange County, we understand that his own murder trial is going to be heard here in Los Angeles.
In new court papers, stunning revelations in the spousal murder case against Orange County Judge Jeffrey Ferguson, who prosecutors say texted his court clerk and bailiff minutes after allegedly shooting his wife Cheryl.
He understands incriminating statements. He understands the right to remain silent, and definitely statements like this and the fact that he was intoxicated will be used against him. His son is the only eyewitness to this case, and he will be called by the prosecution as a witness against his father.
Prosecutors are now asking that the accused judge and his son have limited contact and the judge's $1 million bail be amended.
Like surrendering his passport, wearing an ankle monitor, unable to consume any alcohol.
When police arrived at the judge's home after the shooting, they say he reeked of alcohol, slurred his speech, and asked patrol officers to shoot him. He allegedly cursed repeatedly, said he was sorry, and, "Oh man, I can't believe I did this." Statements he apparently repeated later at the police station.
In light of the judge's conspicuous confession, the fact that bail was even a viable option was reasonably questioned.
The 72-year-old actually posted bail yesterday afternoon. The fact that bail was even an option is questioned by many this morning, but a legal expert tells me it's not surprising that they gave Ferguson bail. The premise that someone is presumed innocent until proven guilty, combined with his age and his lack of criminal history, suggests he is not a flight risk.
He's out, as you mentioned, on $1 million bail. I've had cases just this year where I had people where there was no death, and I had to go to the Court of Appeal, back down, do preliminary hearing before I could get a client out where there was no death, where they actually had no bail. Here, they did not. The prosecutor didn't go in after the police released him and he posted bail, didn't say, hey, not judge the defendant, but judge who's presiding, we want you to make this no bail. We're afraid he's going to flee. We're afraid he's done stuff before. He's going to hurt himself. He's never going to be found accountable. They didn't do any of that, which leads me to believe one of two alternatives. Either they're giving him the benefit of the doubt, or because he's been in the system, they're saying there, but for the grace of God, walk I. I don't know what other explanation there is for.
Both defendant and counsel hold strong to the stance of accidental, unintentional homicide. After the August 11th hearing, Ferguson's lawyer told reporters that the longtime judge and former prosecutor was confident a jury would agree with him that no crime was committed.
I'm sure they're going to be arguing for an involuntary manslaughter.
So he's got no criminal history, and he's got a stellar past, right? He's a judge. He's like the supposedly the best among us. He said to the police officers, well, I guess I'm done for a while. Don't you think if it was accidental, a jury would probably feel like he would say something else, like, oh God, I've had a terrible accident, not, I guess I'll be in custody. And doesn't it seem odd?
Well, yeah, no, the whole thing is very odd, obviously, especially when you layer in the fact that the gun had gone off previously, that he put the gun to his head previously, that he smells like alcohol. You can make a compelling case that he's going through some kind of alcoholic-induced or has got some issues with alcohol. But I think virtually everything you said is still consistent with either an accidental discharge or a non-intentional. If the argument is, as you know, Ashley, we've talked about it a million times, if it is with malice, meaning a depraved mind, then it's murder. If it is a killing done without malice, then you're talking about manslaughter. If it's manslaughter, you've got either voluntary or involuntary. Voluntary would be generally if it was a heat of passion or something along those lines. It does not sound like that's what the lawyers are going to argue.
You know what?
Yeah.
That all makes perfect sense, and everything you say makes perfect sense, except for the fact that he had to reach down to the ankle holster, unholster a gun, bring it up, and shoot. And as you know, this is weird. I always found this weird, but intent can be formed in seconds. It doesn't need to be you lying in wait for the lover to come home and elaborate plot. Intent for a first-degree murder can be formed in seconds. Do you think that the prosecutors can make an argument for that, or is that too uphill when you're dealing with a judge?
In terms of fair trial insights, the grave nature of the crime, coupled with the prominence of the judge's position, makes this case particularly complex in nature.
And his plea is not guilty. The charges are 1 felony count of murder, 2 felony enhancements because of the use of a firearm. They're doing this in LA because of his connections to the Orange County court system, and he was here. So was her family.
Hell. I busted down in tears. This is really hard.
The brother of Cheryl Ferguson describing what it was like to be in court for his brother-in-law. Orange County Superior Court Judge Jeffrey Ferguson pleaded not guilty to killing his wife at their Anaheim Hills home. Prosecutors say he shot 66-year-old Cheryl Ferguson during an argument while he was drunk on the night of August 3rd.
For 40 years, Judge Ferguson has protected and served the citizens of Orange County. We expect when they decide his fate that they will agree this was an accident and nothing more.
And we believe all the facts will support that. Anybody who knows him and knows him well would understand this.
I think as the case continues on, in the record, you'll see that there's going to be some stuff that may potentially come up.
Cheryl's family say they are focusing on protecting the couple's 22-year-old son who was in the house at the time of the shooting. A motion prohibiting contact between him and his father was denied.
It's up to the son if the son chooses to or not to.
Judge Ferguson is required to wear a GPS monitoring device, stay away from alcohol and weapons. Anaheim police recovered the pistol believed to have been used in the shooting, plus 47 weapons and about 26,000 rounds of ammunition from his home. Prosecutors were concerned about a .22 caliber rifle registered to the judge that is missing.
We can confirm to the court he doesn't have it, he doesn't possess it.
Judge Ferguson is making no statements, okay?
Ferguson is out on bail. His wife's brother saying she was buried this weekend.
She was the glue that held the family together. Very well loved by many, many people. I would describe what's happening as a tragedy, an absolute tragedy.
The Orange County DA will be prosecuting, even though they're still doing this here in Los Angeles. He is facing, Ferguson, 40 years to life if found guilty on all charges.
Today, he made his first court appearance as a defendant.
Did you go over this document with your lawyers?
I did.
And did you understand what's contained in this document?
Yes, I do.
On his way to the courtroom, I happened to ride on the elevator with Judge Ferguson. He was quiet and somber.
The shooting was a tragedy, according to defense attorney John Barnett, that can only be explained as accidental.
They were
very much in love. They were planning on buying another house together. He just bought her a new car. This was a couple that was very much in love. And that's what makes this all the more terrible.
Judge Jeffrey Ferguson is out on a $1 million bond. In order to remain free, he must surrender his passport and his concealed weapons permit. He also must wear 2 ankle bracelets to monitor his movements. He can't leave the area, can't go near bars or consume alcohol.
This was a grave act of negligence on the part of the judge. And to have the law characterize this incident as an accident for which no crime occurred is inconceivably inconsiderate of the literal loss of life. Whether it was an accidental discharge or not, no judge, no man, and certainly no spouse should be pointing a loaded gun in the direction of their partner. Haphazardly placing someone in harm's way as a means by which to appease one's ego is disgracefully selfish. And to have this deplorable soul freely traversing the earth after drunkenly deciding to make this disheartening death a manifest reality is unrelentingly sickening.
He was one of the country's most respected judges who went from the bench to behind bars. The first judge in Canada ever to be convicted of murder, sentenced to life in prison.
The narrative of our age is one etched in contrasts. On one hand, we have boundless potential. On the other, an unsettling chaos. The lines between right and wrong, between order and disorder, have blurred. What was once a clear distinction between good and evil now dances in shadows, often eluding our grasp. In this maelstrom, where the compasses of morality sometimes spin unchecked, a singular truth emerges. You are entitled to nothing. It's a reality many find hard to digest, but it's a crucible of our making.